FIDE Master John Curtis. Today I'm going to look at the great chess champion Paul Keres of Estonia. Paul had such fantastic results in his lifetime, and he was one of the greatest players, probably the greatest player to never have been a world champion, finishing second in 4 candidates tournaments over a span of many years, and in actual fact one of the greatest chess tournaments in history. In 1938, the Avro Holland tournament, Paul Keres came first with 8.5, and Reuben Fine of the United States tied with 8.5. Keres won on the count back. That tournament included Mikhail Botvinnik next on 7.5 from the Soviet Union, the world champion Max Euwe, another champion from the Netherlands, Samuel Reshevsky, the great American grandmaster, Alekhine, the then world chess champion, and Jose Raul Capablanca, he scored 6 points, and of course Salo Flohr of Czechoslovakia on 4.5. It was the Dutch broadcasting company Avro that sponsored that tournament in Avro Holland 1938, and you can look that tournament up and have a look at the games. Go to chessgames.com and have a look at some of those beautiful games. Today what I'm going to do is I'm going to give a game of Keres against the great Bobby Fischer. This is taken from the 1959 Bled Zagreb Belgrade Candidates Tournament, where Fischer was white and the great Paul Keres had the black pieces. And here we go with the game. Right, Fischer white played e4, reply was c6. So we have the Caro Kann here. And all theory, as we can see. H3, bishop takes knight, queen takes bishop. And Fischer played this many times before, but you've got to remember, at this time, the Russian, the Soviet Union analysis was just absolutely fantastic. As a matter of fact, I might just stop here just for a second and just tell you, it's just lucky that Keres was even alive. Stalin wanted to kill him. He was going to execute Paul Keres after the Second World War, when Estonia was taken over and the Soviet Union rolled through Europe. So Paul Keres was lucky to be alive. It's only one of the other great grandmasters stepped in and spoke to Stalin and saved his life. And anyway, d3 was played, e6. G3, and the whole idea is white just wants to slowly build up. Bobby Fischer just wants to slowly build up his position, but first he thought, well, I'll just counter and solidify my position with bishop to d2, and he thought, well, I can still continue to build because I've restricted black's position, and if he does play d4, which he does, I can just play knight to b1, and if he takes the bishop, well, I can recapture with the knight and have a fine game. However, this is the analysis that the great Paul Keres came up with. Queen to b6. He keeps the tension on the queen side. He doesn't want white to develop freely on that side of the board. He wants to cause Fischer problems. Fischer played b3. I'm sure later he would regret that, as the engine shows here. Black is slightly better after that move. a5 is played, and now black tends to start reinforcing play on the black squares on the queen side. And Bobby can't take any more of this, so he says, oh, well, I've got to get rid of that bishop. And the bishop doesn't capture, but now that black has delayed white developing the queen's knight, we have a position where Bobby Fischer, for one of the very, very few times in his career, his pieces are discombobulated. They're not coordinating well on the queen side. His natural flow of development is been sort of dealt a terrible blow with this idea of Queen B6 and after D4 that the great Paul Keres has played. Bishop G2, so he prepares to castle, and Keres won't leave him alone. He says, right, I'm not just going to castle and let you build up your attack. I'm going to cause you problems, make you think, and I'm going to cause problems on the queen side. Now, you can't take the pawn off because of queen to B2 would win a castle. So, you push past. Of course you do. Now, knight b5 to d7, black completes the development. Right? So black's completing his development, and now Bobby castles. Now, Bobby's still got this problem where his knight can't come out. As you can see, his knight can't come out to c3, and that means his castle is looking awkward as well. And at this stage, he would be really unhappy with the way he's played the game. C5 is played, but remember these are learning years for Bobby Fischer. He would become the great player that he was in subsequent years after these years of trials and tribulation, finding his way in chess against these great grandmasters. Anyway, rook to A2 is played, and black castles. White takes the pawn and thinks, well, I'll try to get some sort of play, active play. Maybe I can open up the queen side and play both ends, both sides of the board. Black just recaptures with the bishop. Queen at E2 is played, and now E5, trying to suppress the play on the black side, on the white side of the board. F4 is played, and that's what Bobby's aimed for all along. He wants to build his position. Rook on the F file to C8. This is a really interesting move because it puts pressure on the queen side, and it's a matter of a bit of a race who gets through. So Bobby says, all right, well, I want to get through first. So he plays H4 with the idea of getting some sort of roll on with his position, but still he's stuck with his damn knight on B1. And what does he do? How does he extricate his pieces from such a terrible blocked in situation? So he can't move his knight. Can't move his knight at all. He's got no squares and the rook is trapped and nothing is working. So he knows that this is a terrible position at this stage. Rook to C6. The engine's assessing the position as equal. Bishop to H3. And now finally Bobby is putting a piece on an attacking square. And queen to C7 is now played, preparing probably to move the bishop back one square and attack the C pawn. Remember, on this file, on this C file here, black can also play rook on the A8 square to rook to C8, and then attack down this file on this lonely little pawn. So white's got a few things to think about. He takes the pawn in the centre, white captures that pawn, and black recaptures with the knight. Now you can still see that the white queen side is restricted terribly, and now it's just a matter. Oh, and the rook on C6, what a beautiful rook! You notice how the rook coordinates to protect the knight from any of Bobby's attacking ideas. Okay, bishop to F4. Bobby says, well, I've got to get my pieces out. If you can move quick enough, take the knight, play knight D2 or something like that, he might be able to get going. But unfortunately, he's got structural structural flaws in his position has our Bobby Fischer. Bishop d6 is played just to support the knight and attack the c-pawn. h5 is played, and now we see a really interesting move. We see the rook, instead of going to c8, instead of going here, he does a rook lift. Paul Keres does a rook lift, and he's controlling the square. He's given himself fantastic mobility with this rook lift move. Bobby plays h6, try to cause some sort of weakness in the position, and Paul Keres doesn't even worry about pawn takes pawn. He doesn't even worry about it. You know why? He's doing a clearing move. This knight back is called the clearing move. He's clearing his rook to come over to the king side. So there's more pieces, more black pieces moving over to that side of the board. Queen to f3 is played to try to keep the position as solid as possible. And now, rook to h5. Look at this move. It's attacking rook takes bishop, and also threatening bishop takes bishop and rook takes pawn. So black is really throwing the gauntlet down to Paul Keres, to Bobby Fischer. I should say Paul Keres is throwing the gauntlet down to Bobby Fischer. So we've got bishop g4. Now, he doesn't take the bishop. A lot of players would take the bishop there. Not Paul. Paul knows that in this position that he's got his opponent. Now, if pawn takes knight, we're going to have rook here, right? So if pawn takes knight, we're going to have rook here. And when the bishop moves somewhere, rook takes pawn is just deadly. It's all over. So let's have a look at this position here. Other moves are pawn to king 5, and again, in that position, knight takes bishop could be played, and rook takes pawn, right? And the king wouldn't survive. The king would not survive, right? So if pawn to king 5, knight takes bishop, queen takes, threatening checkmate, then rook takes pawn, and pawn takes rook. So I'll show you this. If pawn to king 5, hold on, we go back here. Pawn takes bishop, played knight there, knight takes bishop. He took the rook, right? This is Bobby's choice. He takes the rook thinking that the knights are not coordinated, maybe he can get out or something. He does realise that the position is lost, and this is on move, maybe he's worried about getting to the time control. I don't think the time control will come into it. Pawn takes pawn on g7, and now black's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces against white's 4 pieces. And really it's all over. Queen to d7, he doesn't bother with his g-pawn. He wants to penetrate the position. He wants to play rook to c5 and queen to and rook to g4, or simply queen to h6, and blast his opponent off the board. King to g2 is played to stop queen to h6. Knight to g4 is played to coordinate the knights better with a view to going knight e3 check. Knight to d2, finally the piece comes out that's been blocked all along, and still we have a silly rook in the corner, and not something you'd see in very many Bobby Fischer games, I can assure you, where a rook is completely out of play like that and the piece is so discoordinated. So knight checks, and finally now black is recovering the exchange with a 1 game, and now after that move, that's the end of the game. Bobby Fischer resigns in disgust. He knows his position's totally lost. You can't play king to rook 1, because if you do, there's a queen check on h6, and basically there's just pieces are flying in everywhere. You can't play king here because a bishop takes pawn check. Everything is just too many pieces all coming in. You can see the rooks coming in too. Rook here, rook here. It's just absolutely dead. So Bobby just resigns and packs up his scribble pad and his pen. He goes back to what he does best, that is preparing his next for his next encounter, when he's going to whip their backsides, because that's what he eventually did. But there's on chess.com, there's an excellent, absolutely excellent story line on Paul Keres. So if you want to go into this article here, it's called Chess Essentials, Best Chess Players to Have Never Been World Chess Champions. And they talk about the great Paul Keres, friend Paul. Here he is there. Okay, friend Paul. And if we go down here, we see, if it weren't for the greatness of Victor Korchnoi, the Estonian Paul Keres would have easily taken out the #1 spot on the greatest player to never have become world champion list. And they talk about during his career, he displayed amazing consistency and longevity. The war stopped him. The war really affected his beloved Estonia. And as I said to you earlier, there was a time there in the during the Second World War. Here we have with photographs of Paul Keres and Reuben Fine, Alexander Alekhine, Jose Raul Capablanca, Max Euwe. See the tournament I was talking about earlier, the Avro Holland tournament, 1938, with these wonderful great players, 4 of which would be all world champions. It's just one of the greatest tournaments in living history, the Avro Holland tournament of 1938. And this article is, there's Paul with his Estonian prison, Konstantin Pats, and he was, it's basically just sad to see that Paul Keres' tournament was life history was a sad one. There was mention that the Russians may have, or the Soviets, I should say, may have colluded to stop him being a world champion, and certainly in one tournament by only as much as a half a point, when 2 Soviet grandmasters had a quick, easy draw with each other. And much has been spoken of this, but this article explains a lot. And there's another photo of Paul Keres with Vasily Smyslov. This is an absolute must. If you go into chess.com and have a look up Chess Essentials, the best chess players never to become world champions. This is a fabulous article. I certainly couldn't cover all this on a YouTube video, and I'm just proud to be able to present one game to you of the great Paul Keres. Paul Keres, if you go to eBay, you can see the 5 kroner note or whatever it is. You can look it up and you'll see Paul Keres is on the money note. And there's also a coin, a euro coin issued with Paul Keres' face on it. So if you want to go to eBay for as little as $10 or $7 or something like that, you can get a coin with a chess coin with real currency with Paul Keres' face on it. So it could be a lucky coin. And even a stamp, there was a stamp issued with Paul Keres' face, and when Paul Keres died, there was something like 200,000 people at his funeral. Such was the respect for this gentleman of the chessboard. Anyway, I'm going to sign off now. Please thumbs up if you like this video, and subscribe if you want to get notification of more of my videos. And if you want to support my channel, my PayPal link is in the video description. And any donations you can make to my PayPal would be much appreciated, because it helps me get the time to be able to put these videos together for your enjoyment. You take care now, and God bless.